رأس المال البشري ليس ترفاً تنظيمياً، بل استثماراً في المستقبل بذاته. حين تمنح الكفاءات مساحة للقيادة، تولد بيئة عمل تحفز المعنى قبل الأداء. الابتكار في الأعمال من خلال الحلول متعددة الوظائف. معنا متحدثين ومدير للحوار، نتعرف عليهم مع بعض. الأستاذ عبدالإله الحديدي، Mr. Daniel Billington، ويدير الحوار الدكتور وليد مروان.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. Really it's my honor to be here and host this amazing panel. We will start the phase of future of innovation, the theme about our summit for these days. Our topic is called Business Innovation, Coaching 4.0, Business Innovation. So we will wrap up the whole elements about the summit. We will discuss some empowering, some about future of innovation, and legacy of impact. But before we start to go through our panel for today, let me welcome our guest speakers here, Mr. Abdulelah, Mr. Daniel, and if you can introduce yourself and briefly for the audience.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Daniel Billington. I'm the Director of Coaching Solutions at EZRA Coaching. For those that don't know EZRA, we are a global provider of coaching at scale, working with around 750 clients globally. Recently surpassed 1 million coaching sessions delivered, so we're really focused on coaching at scale through ICF certified coaches.
يعطيكم العافية. السلام عليكم. أنا عبدالإله الحديدي. I'm the co-founder of Saudi Executive Coaching. Saudi Executive Coaching is specialized in executive coaching, team coaching, leadership development, and we just launched Coachy with a Y. That's, we claim to be the first Saudi coaching management system that is full-fledged and that is equipped with an end-to-end journey between individuals all the way to corporates and what's between them.
Okay, thank you and welcome you both. Today we'll discuss four main elements about the emerging businesses and the new trends of coaching. We will talk about a little bit about the impact of coaching on businesses, and we will discuss some new trends relevant to physical and virtual coaching, and finally the AI and the latest technology trends. In a nutshell, of course, to respect the time. Okay, let's start with the coaching in emerging business environments, since our world and we have a lot of dynamic change across the world. So how can the coaching stay relevant and adapt to these changes and these dynamics? Especially you have both a local and the global point of view. So let's know from your expertise. So let's start with Abdulelah.
Yeah, perhaps I can take this. And I know it's probably the last session before the closing, or second to last. Mm-hmm. So I'll try to make this as engaging as possible.
Okay.
Yeah? Do I have you on board? Good. So who recalls the term that was used by Magdalena yesterday? Bani, exactly. And what does that stand for? Brittle. Brittle. Anxious. Non-linear. Incomprehensible. Yeah. And it struck me as I was preparing for this panel today, I was grappling with the concept of VUCA. Yeah. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the concept of VUCA. So when we talk about volatility, uncertainty, and so on, how do you support leaders as coaches to go about those? If I can invite you to explore what leadership qualities are we looking at when we're dealing with both VUCA or BANI in this case. So I created the leadership VUCA, if you like. And those are You have your notes with you if you'd like to capture those. The first one is vulnerability. Yeah. So how do we support leaders? When you talk about relevant in today's context, how do we help leaders become more vulnerable? As coaches, how do we cope with this ever-changing dynamic environment, really? And when I was reflecting on Abdulrahman's session a couple of minutes ago, what are the barriers to development in organizations? And I saw multiple reasons there. I was wondering if we are somehow, somewhat, a barrier as a coaching community. Are we innovative enough? Are we creating enough? There are lots of great coaches here who are contributing massively to the coaching industry. But then, are we relevant as coaches in today's environment or not? How do we support leaders make themselves vulnerable? Yeah? And then if we talk about the leadership VUCA, the U is what? Unlearnability, if I can call it. So the ability to unlearn continuously, yeah, so that you stay relevant as a leader. Again, question to the coaches, how do we support leaders to maintain that mindset of unlearning all the time? Yeah. And then the C is what? Clarity. So in such a dynamic environment, what mindset do we adopt as coaches to help those leaders define their goals clearly, become clearer on what is it that they want? And the last but not least is the A part, which is agility. Yeah? What type of questions do we ask? Yeah? How do we relate to the leader's context that is so complex, and hopefully help them navigate that beyond traditional plain vanilla coaching? And I'll stop here.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for your answer. So we now have another terminology or another acronym for VUCA invented by Abdulelah. So this is an innovative word. So thank you, Abdulelah. So moving to Dan, what do you think about the new emerging trends?
First of all, I'm starting to wish that I'd come up with my own acronym for VUCA. I was thinking about whether I could just come up with one on the spot, but no, I don't. It's a little bit too much pressure, so I'm not going to attempt that. But maybe just to share perspective from a more global perspective. The leaders that we work with at EZRA and that our coaches work with globally are all experiencing these BANI and VUCA challenges that we've talked about. And I think if we talk about innovation, we've seen, and we're going to talk about it a little bit during this panel, we've seen several leaps forward within the coaching industry, from pure face-to-face coaching to more virtual delivery. And now we see the advent of AI as well. So I think there's a role for, and we were talking about this a little bit just earlier, there's a role for all of us in the various guises that coaching is delivered. That can be face-to-face executive coaching at the very top of the house, but that can also be coaching that is for thousands of people at more junior levels within the organization. So we work with large multinationals where we may not be focused on really senior executive people who are dealing with those BANI conditions so much, but dealing more with people who are on the ground, maybe even individual contributors or first-line managers, and just helping them to navigate their day-to-day. So I think coaching is a really interesting place to be in, because there's a role for all of us. There's a role for Saudi executive coaching, there's a role for EZRA, and there's a role for face-to-face and virtual delivery, and we think it's a really exciting place to be. So we're just happy to be here.
Okay, excellent. Going back to this point, the blend between physical and virtual coaching, how we can maximize the accessibility and benefit about both approaches?
Yeah, show of hands in the room. So I know we've got lots of coaches here. So how many people deliver face-to-face coaching? How many people deliver virtual coaching? How many people deliver both? So that's the majority of the room, right? We've already seen that shift, and we already know that, that it can work. And so what it's really about is how do we continue to provide really quality coaching and coaching experiences and engagements for people, but giving them the flexibility that virtual delivery allows. So that's what we're really focused on. We're not saying that there's not a place for and a role for face-to-face coaching. We know that there absolutely is. And if you look at research with regards to things like the working alliance and building that working alliance between the coach and the coachee, certainly some of those things are easier to do initially in a face-to-face environment. But what our coaches tell us now is that they've been doing this virtual coaching for, in many cases, several years. So they've become very attuned to quickly building that relationship, building that rapport with people in a virtual environment. And what we also hear from our clients is that often at the top of the house, there's a little bit of a concern about, are our senior executives going to be okay with being coached by somebody in a virtual environment? And we do hear some of those concerns. What we actually see in our data, though, is that our most senior executives that are being coached on our most senior kind of solution, they give us even higher ratings in the virtual environment than slightly more junior audiences that we work with. So 4.9 out of 5 on average versus 4.8 out of 5. I know it's not a big difference, but what we're seeing is that virtual coaching for very senior people can be a good solution and is something that within our industry we have a role to play in embracing it and encouraging senior leaders to embrace it, I would say.
Amazing. So the senior leaders prefer the virtual coaching more than...
I wouldn't say they prefer it to the face-to-face. They like that it gives them the flexibility to have a session on the fly, on the way to the airport when they've got a flight to match with their busy schedule, for example. But what we do see is that with our solution that is designed for executives and senior leaders, when they give us the ratings of those sessions, they are a little higher than what we see from, say, first line and middle managers. So they might be a little reticent to engage with virtual coaching to begin with, but once we get them into the process and they realize the quality of the coaching that they're getting, they're generally very happy with the quality and consistency that they get from their coach.
Okay, excellent. Getting back to the business points, since we are talking business innovation, how can we shift the coaching from being a leadership tool to strategic enabler for business transformation? Let's start with Abdulelah about this question.
Well, I have a personal experience here to share. I spent a few years in learning and development. Like out of my 20 years career, I think 13 out of them are in learning and development. And what frustrated me the most when I moved from head office down to the operations and I started asking the employees on floor, how was the recent training experience? How was the recent course? And the answer is what? Which one? What do you mean? So basically they tend to forget real quick, and we know that it's usually the case with most trainings, not all trainings. And this is where coaching comes into play, obviously. But also with coaching, if we assume that all organizations are the same and we're just going in with a linear approach to coaching, then it is also prone to fail in that sense. So a key word, and I don't mean to use a lot of acronyms today, but it's just happening. So a key word here is RAM, for those of you from L&D. So it's relevance, alignment, and measurement. If you meet a CEO or a chairman of an organization and you try to convince them that coaching is an amazing thing to do and it's so impactful, and look at the stats from ICF and everywhere else, the first question they're going to ask is what? The universal language, which is?
Money.
What is in it for the organization? So, answering your question, I think it's relevance that matters the most. That's one. Alignment with the organizational goals and the ability to measure that impact. And when you talk about relevance and alignment, we're not talking about an executive sitting in an office. this is how we symbolize leaders in our heads, maybe. Have we thought of a construction senior projects engineer who needs coaching, who spends 12 hours on site? What is relevant for that engineer? Is it pure executive coaching? Be it online or offline, that doesn't matter if you can get hold of them. So I think the challenge we have as coaches is how do we cater to the different needs of the audience that we work with? And obviously I talk a lot about organizations and corporates and leaders. This is our niche and this is the segment that we work with. So RAM is one. I'll leave you with one last acronym, I promise. So relevance, alignment, and measurement, but also physical. Or phygital. So between physical and digital, there is something in between. And what clients are looking for is a holistic solution. It's not either or. And if we're still stuck that it has to be on a platform or it has to be a face-to-face, then maybe we're a bit outdated. So how do we open up to the different possibilities of catering to the need of those coaches, clients, individuals, leaders, and adjust our approaches? And I know that might challenge the boundaries a bit. Sometimes the boundaries of confidentiality, maybe, yeah, in a way or another. So how do we show flexibility as well? And how do we grapple with those ethics, standards, and boundaries and stay open for trial in this case?
Excellent. So we have another acronym, phygital. Okay, this is the new.
That's physical and digital, so it's phygital.
Okay. Then can you give us some insights about how we can measure the impact of coaching on organizations?
Yeah, sure. I can talk a little bit about how we do that at EZRA and how we see our clients doing it as well. So I would say it's something that clients are coming to us more and more and are really insistent on, is that kind of tangible ROI. They want to know what are they getting for their money. And they are not happy to just rely on satisfaction metrics. So at the end of every coaching session on our platform, people will be asked to rate the quality of their coach, the quality that the contribution that coaching is making to their professional development, and also give us a rating of the quality of the tech as well. And those are all great metrics, but that isn't enough. So what we also do is we will do a behavioral assessment and also ask them some questions within that assessment about, at a more organizational level, where do they start before coaching and where do they get to at the end? And to give you some examples, we'll be asking them questions around their sense of organizational connection, their sense of commitment to the organization, how well they feel they're performing in their job, those sorts of things. And we do that as a time one and time two assessment. And then at an aggregate level, we will report that data back to our clients. So we're giving them a sense of, from both a behavioral perspective and an organization level perspective, where do we see coaching shifting the dial? But we don't just do that as a self-report questionnaire, because we know that self-report is inherently got its issues. So we do that typically as a 180 or a 360 tool. So we will always be asking the line manager for their perspective as well. But we are still there only talking about surveys, right? So what we're seeing more and more of our clients come to us and say is, actually, we've got all of this data internally within our people analytics function. We know how many of those people that you've coached leave our business, how many of those people are promoted, how many of them make lateral moves. We know how engaged they are in their roles from engagement surveys. We know how engaged their team members are from engagement surveys. So they're coming to us and asking us, within the parameters of working within a real business, how close can we get to doing a randomized control trial and allocating, say, 100 leaders to a coached group and 100 leaders to a control group, and effectively proving the impact of the coaching solution that we're delivering. So we're seeing that we're doing more and more of that with a lot of the big global corporate organizations that we work with.
Excellent, amazing experience. Okay, I think we have covered all the agreed points that we discussed. So now it's the time for Q&A with the audience. So if anyone has a question, please raise your hand and ask our global and local experience. We have globalization here. This is another terminology, globalization. Anyone has a question for our panels? Yes, Janet, here.
I love the modeling of innovation to create a VUCA. Good job. But I'm curious on clarity, that your focus of attention was on the leader's internal clarity. And in my work in larger organizations, there's also the ability to perceive into the system. And I wonder if you could comment a little bit about clarity at an organizational wisdom level and how you work with that.
Wow, that's a very, thank you for the question. It takes me into the area of sentiment analysis and the reading within that context. So obviously we work a lot with the leaders directly, right? But there is the person, there is the role, and there's the organization, obviously, right? The PRO. And there are two organizations, if not more. The organization in the leader's mind and the organization as perceived by everybody else, right? When we talk about innovation, I believe it's finding what is ethical, meaningful, value adding to the organization in a way that helps derive insights that triggers actions. And I'll come back directly to your question now around organizational reading and understanding. If we leverage on the right tools today, from a coaching perspective and from an organizational intervention perspective, we would be able and of a better use to the organization than the way we are maybe traditionally today. And I'll elaborate more. Some of you probably heard that I had a very strong point of view yesterday on AI. And that is, maybe it's incomprehensible for us for the time being, and that's why we are rejecting it fully and saying, no way, AI coach, I want a human being to be with me in the room. And I'm just wondering if you follow me in this scenario, if the tool enables you to collect data and insights from the interactions between employees and the organization and the questions that they ask day in, day out, that's already a lot to work with. If the tool helps you to continue assessing the individual, the leader, do your 360, if the tool helps you do the matching based on an algorithm, and it's not random. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, huh? So it's not random. It helps you match with the right coach. If it helps you to run a session that is recorded, and I know we get triggered as coaches when we hear about recording generally and sharing of what happens in a coaching session, obviously. I was told not to tap into anything that is ICF approved. In that case, I'll try to be politically correct. So I can go there? Okay, good. Then I'll do that. So when we start thinking about session recording, analysis of what happens in the session, the nuances that you see on the client's face that the coach could not pick up, the tone of voice, and how you analyze that. I just want you to imagine the possibilities now. And if you can leverage that for both the leader's insights and the coach insights on what they need to do better, if you can turn that into an action plan that gets measured and connected to a KPI within the business. And I know it sounds like a dream, but the technology is out there. We just need to take it and implement it. And then, now that's the scenario of one individual leader. Multiply that by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 leaders across the organization. How much data do you have that you can work with? A lot. And that's the potential that we might be missing out on today. And I point at myself here first, honestly, before I encourage my colleagues here and coaches. Let's open up to the possibility of what the technology has to offer for us, and I'm confident it will surprise us. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
No, but it was a fascinating answer.
Yeah, I think we went to the debate, is the AI will replace the human being or not, how we can use AI in the coaching, and this is we have a lot of debate in this area. So Dan, if you have your insights about AI and using technology.
So our perspective at EZRA is that coaching is human to human, one to one. That relationship is the core of coaching and always will be. But that there is a role for AI, and there are certainly competitors of ours out there who have fully adopted and embraced an AI-led approach and created AI coaches. Our approach at EZRA so far has been that we want to utilize AI where we feel it is helpful to enhance the learnings from the human-to-human experience. So to give you an example, we have developed our own AI coach in-house, which is called Kai. But it is not intended, and I hope this is good news for everyone in this room, it is not intended to replace the human-to-human coach. The way we're using it is within our, couple of ways, within our coaching programs, at various points on one of our solutions, people will get a set of behavioral nudges. So in addition to the coaching, they will also receive nudges. And within those nudges, they're asked to provide usually 2 or 3 responses to a couple of questions to get them to think a little bit more about the topic. And so what we have asked the AI to do, we've trained our AI model on the ICF competencies, so it is as coach-like as possible. It will then provide them with feedback on the responses that they give. So it's further getting people to reflect on and think about how well they're communicating, how well they're creating psychological safety. The other thing that we've done is we've developed a tool that we call Practice with Kai, where people can come into the platform at any point, separate to their coaching sessions. And we have developed a set of role-play scenarios that people can practice, things that typically people struggle with at work, how to say no, how to manage conflict, how to have a great conversation about career development and their ambitions for the future. So we have built those internally. Our team of behavioral scientists have built those. And then Kai, within those role plays, will play 2 roles. So it will play the role of the role play partner, but it will also play the role of an AI coach, if you like, in that at certain points during the role play, it will provide them with feedback, saying this is something you're doing particularly well, but here's perhaps an opportunity for you to further develop or think about things from a slightly different perspective. So the core of our business and our belief is that coaching is that one-to-one, human-to-human development, but we're not shying away entirely from adopting AI where we think that it can enhance the learnings for people.
Excellent, amazing. So as a summary, we can use the AI either to analyze data, big data analysis, and gain insights from these data, or in your case, like assistant or a role play, to learn certain skill or to develop certain skill. But it will not replace human being for sure. Okay.
And that's not a claim. We're not saying it will replace, but rather how do we embrace? And now I feel responsible to answer the question directly by saying I went on and on analyzing results, big data, etc., to simply say this will help derive clarity on an organizational level on what is it that we want to work with, so that we don't assume it is about communication. And we hear this a lot from clients. What do you want to work with? It's communication, it's teamwork, and the moment you go and sit with the team and start reading the data, what you realize is completely something else that you need to work with. So if we leverage data, insights, technology, tools, we would be able to hopefully derive insights on what is it that we want to work with, really. That's the organizational clarity.
And we will have the C of VUCA, which is clarity in this case, right? Okay, excellent. Any more questions? Yes, Nizar?
Nizar Musa again. So, as we say, charity starts at home. Is there any kind of study or any kind of statistics that shows the number of coaching hours or even the percentage of participation or implementation of coaching by the certified coaches worldwide within their homes, with their kids especially? I don't know if there is a kind of study or something like this about this, or even from your experience if you find a percentage of that.
So just for clarity, so in terms of a study, there's lots of studies, and we have a team in-house that do research and publish academic research, but whether there's if I've understood you correctly, a study on the number of hours that people have spent in coaching and the impact that that's having in the home, I haven't seen that, but that would be a fascinating piece of research. I see people shaking their heads in the front row as well. My perspective is always that perhaps there is an opportunity for somebody maybe in this room to think about how to do something like that. But no, I've not seen that.
Any insights about this? But it's a provoking question to think about the analysis about the type of coaching in-house, in office, virtual versus human. All this inside the AI can do some analysis on this. Okay, excellent. I think we went to our end of session. One question here. Okay, last question, please. Okay.
Hi, I'm Dima Baltaji. I'm a change management expert. And going back to something that you spoke about, Coach Abdulإله, about the insights and getting the insights. I'm an alumni, EY alumni, and our change management framework over there we used to call change insights. And I know gathering this data, it costs a lot of money. A lot of money. And our clients, when you used to tell them the amount of money that's expected, if we are going to use that methodology, it's that amount of money. And they were a little bit reluctant about utilizing it. I said, no, we want the traditional old way. It's okay. So when you're talking about the fantastic, ideal way to gather these insights, who's going to be paying for it? Yes, because clients might be reluctant to pay.
Abdulelah,
based on
in
experience.
1 minute, please.
If I get your question accurately, talking about change management and the ability to really work with teams so that you can derive insights, is it physical, is it digital, is it something else? I think it's both and. I go with this concept of both and. It's never either or in all cases. In my change management practices, the workshops that I've run with plenty of clients, every client is unique, and the possibilities they have to work with their challenges are limitless. Who's going to pay for it is a really difficult question to go about, but I'm all for equipping the client with the necessary tools to do a good job that is sustainable. And that comes from a customer centricity perspective. So if you put the client first and really work towards that in terms of how you design your solutions, then you will most likely do the right thing for them. Yeah. So whatever it is that they can afford, you will customize a solution that works for them. If we move beyond what we know as this is how change management should be done, but what is in it for the client and what could work best for them? Customization is key, I would say. There's no single answer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Abdulelah. Thank you, Daniel. And thank you both for this amazing session. And we'll leave you now for the next session.
Thank you so much. We'll just wait for the photo, please.